Hey guys, how's it going? So I appreciate watching another one of my crappy low production value videos. This time we're going to take an uber rare 1983 FJ40 out for a ride. Now when you talk about FJ40s, they're rare in America, period. When you talk about the best of the best, was the very last year of production, 1983. There were reportedly 350 of these brought into the US, and 50 of those had factory power steering and AC. Now this truck doesn't have power steering or AC, but what it does have is pretty remarkable. It's a 65,000 mile original truck, and I've known of this truck personally for over 10 years, maybe 15 actually, because I first found it going surfing in Malibu at Little Dune, which is like a private beach. And I saw it peeking out of a guy's garage and started pestering him. Years later, he went through a nasty divorce, and I was lucky enough to get it. So let's go check it out, and I'll explain why the 83 is so coveted. First of all, there's the US version of these old Land Cruisers, and there's the non-USA version. So everything I'm going to talk about is pertaining to the US version specifications and differences, because if we get into global spec, it's going to be a far more confusing conversation. But basically the long and short of it is that the US versions, in response to the pickier and more evolved taste of the American consumers, as well as emissions and safety laws, etc., pretty much throughout production had better and more refined equipment in them. So take this 83. In some countries, actually every country but the US, I believe, in 83 still had drum brakes. Power assist, but drum, and well, let's face it, drums kind of suck. So the US version had front disc brakes with 4-piston calipers, and in the rear they were still running drums, but they're way better than the older one. They're actually the same architecture as found on the FJ60 model up until 87, where they have a self-adjusting single wheel cylinder design, and the parking brake is no longer a drum attached to the back of the transfer case, which brought incurable vibration and noise, but is actually a true parking brake actuating the shoes on the rear axle. Other improvements are the split transfer case. So the transmission updates, which I think was called the H41, I'm sure someone's going to correct me if I'm wrong, so let's call it the H51 for the hell of it, or H41, was an update transfer case, as well as it came with a matched updated transfer case that's commonly referred to as the split case, which is way quieter. The only complaint back in the day was that the low range in four-wheel drive wasn't low as the earliest version trucks, but there's tons of aftermarket gear sets if you want to geek out on that. But I really find with proper driving skills and responsible off-roading, you can get an 8 of 80 and up to do whatever the heck you want. Other details, we went to a 21.6 gallon fuel tank that is isolated underneath the vehicle up high, as opposed to the smaller, I think 16 and fraction gas tank that you would have found on earlier spec FJ40s. So starting in 1 of 79, they updated that gas tank. We're also going to find 373 differential gears as opposed to 411s, which I can't tell you is so important for modern use. So with an 8340, you can just hop on the freeway and party on. But granted, it's still an old truck, but it'll cruise at reasonable RPMs at reasonable freeway speeds. And I think you can do fairly extended travel at 75, 80 miles an hour without really stressing out the truck. Other details included a redesigned steering wheel, refined ergonomics, seats that have both recline capability as well as floor tracks for driver and passenger, whereas on 78 and olders you had a floor track for the driver, nothing for the passenger, and neither of you got to recline. Also, the rear jump seats were upgraded. They're still the same basic form, but they have a support leg and slightly sturdier construction than the earlier versions. You've got a 6-digit odometer as opposed to the old 5-digit odo. You have a dome light wow, revolutionary. It works when you open the door. Can't believe they thought of that and only took 30 some years. Anyway, and then visually, the way you can tell these apart, you know, any 79 or newer has the wider headlight pattern in the front bib with like more of a rectangular shaped white bezel for the headlights, where the top and bottom planes are the same diameter. 78 and older have the oval off corners with thick on the top, thin on the bottom. But on the inside, the way you can tell an 83 from all other US models is the dash, which is quite distinct. Now it has the same switches and controls, other than the choke cable assembly now has a lit head to let you remind you when your choke is on, as well as it has idiot lights for four-wheel drive, brake, and fasten seat belts. But the other cool feature is that removable silver and black center panel, which what I've heard in cruiser lore is that was a request from the military because that enhanced serviceability. With 4 screws, you can dump it and gain access to all your wiring harness behind the dash versus having to monkey with all the different nuts for individual switches. The odd-looking rectangular blank to the right of the cigarette lighter, for some reason, they thought Americans, I guess, had enough watches, we didn't need a clock. So in all other nations, that's a kind of funky little digital clock, but not in the US. You can find them on eBay on occasion, though, and they're kind of cool to add in. Same with the tachometer. That was only available on deluxe versions of the diesel variant of the truck. The gas ones never got attached. So this truck has these funky little black kind of lower housing thingamajiggers on the outboard edges of the dash. What those tell us is this was a high altitude model, which to my understanding came with different jetting in the carburetor and those silly little things. And those silly little things actually are your friend, because in really cold weather, when you've got moisture on the windows, you can, when the heater is on the defrost setting, route the warm air to the window, and it gives you quick visibility, well, kind of quicker, let's leave it at that, of your rearview mirror heads. So this particular truck, the guy that I was pestering who owned it, his name was Beach, and he lived at the beach. Old hippie surfer guy, really cool guy. I believe he had owned it since it was brand new. I managed to buy it from him. I combed through it mechanically and serviced it in detail, did what we call our stage 1 restoration, and I sold it to another client. That client has several of our trucks and kind of likes to change them out. And despite my urging that he should never sell an 83, he sent this one back to have me resell for him. We also sold recently for him a Resto Mod 74 Red 40 with a fuel-injected 6-liter in it, you may recall, having seen the video on. So here's the thing. Yeah, an 82 is going to drive as nice as an 83, and you're going to pay a premium to get the 83. Well, good luck even finding an 82 or an 81 or an August of 80 or newer. But the 83s, I've owned about 3 dozen roughly of them. I don't remember exactly. And every single one of them, when I've sold them, they're worth more today. That was before the stratospheric jump in Land Cruiser values that you've seen here in recent years, you know, in the last 2 years, let's say. But I mean, they just appreciate constantly, and finding a virgin 83 is really hard to do. So drivability wise, stellar truck, perfectly good manners, although it doesn't have power steering. Frankly, I don't think it needs to. I wouldn't bother converting it. Steering is nice and light. All the tie rod ends, relay box, everything's within tolerance. Dash pad, uncracked, 100% original. Upholstery, 100% original, no tears, no fading, no damage. Factory floor mats, stellar condition. Original owner's manual, original toolkit, original visors, original headliner. The hard top has never been off. The paint on the truck is original. I do believe the rear quarters have been blended. That was done by us professionally many years ago for minor rusts that have been starting. But we did it right, and it hasn't come back, and it looks original. All the factory rivet marks in the sheet metal are all there, which helps you determine originality if you don't know how to spot original paint. But again, I mean, it's just incredible. The door panels have been modified for speakers, but done so well. And if that irks you, you can still get the door panels new, and you could return those to stock and do our kick panel speaker mounts, which are less invasive. But being that it's already there and it's good quality stuff, I'd leave it alone. We have a Sony head unit, AM/FM, that supports a CD changer in the trunk. What else do we have? Oh, we have a high-tech micro eye XKRV11 Bell radar detector. I think you're dreaming if you think you're ever going to need a radar detector in a stock FJ40, but it's there and it works. And we'd be happy to remove it. It was fit intelligently, so there's no modifications to the truck for it to exist. Handling's tight, suspension is all factory. Another detail of upgrade, the 8 of 80 and newer cruisers have a larger diameter eyelet in the spring and shackle pins, allowing for a larger size bushing, resulting into moderately improved ride characteristics. So I guess now I'll just shut up for a while and let the video play out, but really nice truck. In that earlier recording, I did make a couple boo-boos. I was incorrect about the suspension. It is no longer factory. It has been upgraded with the Old Man Emu suspension. Those white wagon wheels are stock to this year. They're not the cheesy Pep Boys earlier ones that the dealers put on. But these are basically the white painted version of the chrome FJ40 wheels that are found on the 8 of 80 and newer models and very difficult to find, along with the stock center caps on the hubs on the rear as well. So enjoy the visuals and the silence. This truck, of course, is California smog compliant. The AC system was cleverly fit without removing the smog pump. Floors are just impeccable. The audio system's a little bit cheesy, done by the prior owner. Easy to remove though. Front floor is excellent as well under those great factory mats. And that's pretty much my whole story. So we ship internationally. We appreciate your interest. Any questions, please let us know or give us a call at 818-280-3330 and make sure to visit the website to see more details.